the Boundless Authenticity Podcast.
So Neil, what's going on? Welcome back.
It's good to be back here, brother. And lots of going on. I mean, it's a new year, so just getting on the grind really for creating new events this year, you know, doing a lot of personal work at the same time, and just seeing really what I want to create for myself in this new year and where I'm going to move forward towards ascension. So it's a huge transformational time right now for me. Yeah. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I feel the same. I am on a new cycle of awesomeness. I've had some pretty good times, some pretty interesting spiritual moments this past year has gone by. And I mean, it's been things that you can't even make it up. And then recently I've had some pretty sad times too. Like I've lost some pets that were really important to me. I've had some tough times where I had to decide if I wanted to be more spiritual than warrior. You know, like I'll just come clean on that one. Around November, somebody broke into my yard and stole 2 of my chickens. And everybody that knows me knows how I feel about chickens, and chickens are my best friends. So I went after the guys. And I threw them around a little bit just to keep it mild, keep it G-rated. I threw them around a little bit. Pretty much, I don't know if you ever remembered those, if you ever watched those old Charles Bronson movies, like the Death Wish series. So. No, when you were younger? Yeah, basically, Charles Bronson as an actor is known for being the tough guy that just somebody hurts his family or something and he kills everybody in the whole city. So I had to go on like a warrior's quest to get my chickens back. So I have them back now, but those 5 guys aren't happy.
How many guys was it?
5 of them.
Wait, you tracked them were the kids or what?
2 of them were kids. 2 of them were kids, 10 years old, my guy.
Damn, 10 years old.
And then the rest were like 17, stuff like that.
And you caught them? You like chased after them and you caught up with them?
I ran behind them, caught 2 of them. They had 1 chicken, and then the other one, I had to like track them Indian style. Like I was just walking through one of the worst neighborhoods that you could want to walk through at night, pitch black, with a sword. Basically. Whoa. It was some tough stuff.
Those are like your babies, right? So it's like you're like a mother whose child had been abducted.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I raised one of those chickens. I raised one of those chickens by hand without a brooder or anything, and I had to wrap him in a towel at night, and he would sleep on my chest just to keep warm. You know, so I got on with that chicken.
I've never had a pet chicken, but I know people that have, and I've heard stories, and they're very, very personable, very loving. One of my friends had a bunch of chickens, and when he'd come home, they'd all be outside jumping up and down on the screen because he'd come home and they knew he was home. Like kind of like a dog would do, right?
Yeah, man, they're very intelligent. I would tell people, don't ever take for granted that what's on your dinner plate didn't have a soul. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was interesting. You're saying you have to like go between what it means to be a warrior and what it means to be spiritual and when to step into that energy. I feel that's a good archetype for the world in general right now. You know, at what point are we spiritually bypassing or letting atrocities happen to us? At what level do we just sit and be the observer, right? And then in which areas do we take action and make some real change, you know, for our own selves, especially. Well, for me right now, it's like realizing, I just got off the phone with a good friend of mine, and we're talking about this, about I always feel like I make myself available to everybody, you know, very, very available. And it comes from this people-pleasing upbringing, you know, this wounded child, always want to make my parents happy. And then doing Portal to Ascension events, I have, the email area, chat area, my phone number goes out on all my emails. Like, so I'm so available. And sometimes I put myself out there so much that I I get triggered by being so available, but I do that because I always want to make sure other people feel seen and heard. But in what happens in those situations is sometimes I forego my own self-respect and don't give myself time to be able to process and be my own container. Does that make sense?
It makes sense because I've been through that. I've been through that early on. When I started doing this business, everybody and their grandmother was reaching out for help, and just it gets overwhelming because you come to realize how many people out there are of the category that you can't help them until they really want to be helped, but they want to take and take and take and take some of your energy. And it's tough because, you really do have that feeling of being in this to help everyone. And then you realize.
So that's what in the world today, it's like just me in general. I'm talking about my business, and obviously like it's set up in a way where people just have access to me. But when it comes to the world now with social media, direct DMs, text messaging, WhatsApp, it's almost like people respect that everybody's available immediately. If you don't get back to them straight away, then there's something wrong. And on some level, it's almost true because when I get a text on my phone, we're on our phones all the time. So to pretend that you got a text and it takes you 4 to 5 days to respond to that text, acts like you don't even check your phone for 4 to 5 days and know that you have that text message. That's normally not the situation. So it's like that person that texts you knows that you are deliberately not texting them back because obviously you check your phone all the time. But the catch-22 is, why do I have to be available for you all the time? Sometimes I need to tune into it. So we've created this false reality where we don't have, people are more reactive. Like somebody texts me, I got to respond. And I do this all the time as well. So what I'm attempting to do in my life is set the pace for tuning in to my feelings of something before I respond, so that I don't create an expectation that I'm always available.
Yeah, I think that scarcity is key. Like you messaged me yesterday and I was like, oh, a message from Neil? Something must be going on. This must be pretty important because I never hear from you, so.
We had the show yesterday. You knew about the show though, right?
Yeah, I knew about it. And I was like, I wonder what happened. Immediately I was like, okay, well, he never sends me any messages unless it's something important. So I try to keep most of my relationships like that. Just have like a few people that maybe can reach me most of the time, not all of the time. And then other people, I got to put pause on that, Yeah.
So what are some revelations then for you over this last year? And what are some things that you're moving forward with in this life? Like what are some new transformations that are happening?
Revelations. I think the one thing that keeps coming around for me all the time is to cultivate more patience. I'm a pretty forgiving person, but when it comes to remaining patient all of the time, I still struggle with it, And I felt like that one came back around last year. Because by the time November hit, Christmas hit, believe it or not, whatever happened with the chickens, I felt like that changed me a little bit. I felt a real cold energy across the top of my skin is the best way to describe it. And there was like a quiet in my head that it hasn't left me since, where I just, that woke me up because I always wanted to see the absolute good in people. So when that happened, I was like, why would anybody want to do that? There's thousands of chickens running around all over the road. Why would you want to break into my place and take mine? And as time moved on and I found out that they fight those chickens and the things that they do to the chickens is terrible. Like they pluck them completely bald and shave down their nails and their talons and everything to be extremely pointy. Then you mutilate these chickens. And I feel like for a lot of people, they would be listening to me talking about this and be like, it's just chickens. But to me, it's not just chickens. It's like, that is a very microcosmic experience because how they treat those animals is how we are treating other people around the world. Like there's nothing at all, And I felt like I somehow shaken hands with with evil for a moment. And it broke me out of a few years good, just looking to see the best in people and trying to help everybody and being extremely forgiving, extremely compassionate, and realizing that I had to eat my own words, because I often tell people, sometimes you do have to grab your sword and chop the head off of the snake or something, because you never know what's going to happen. And so I realized that along with I need to be more patient, I also need to be a little bit more realistic with the way that I'm seeing things, because it was blocking me. I was getting a little bit too comfortable, a little too relaxed on a lot of things, and taking a lot of things for granted,
And it's almost like another level is like, how do you come to peace with those people that did it, right? And what they did, and still have, like, can you still have honor, respect, and love for humanity? Maybe not these people yet. Maybe that's a level of forgiveness that you need to get to eventually, or maybe you're at that. Even when these things happen, because it's like a catalyst, right? This is that experience of that darkness allows us to have the catalyst of, are we still able to be in that state when things aren't going the way we want them to go?
Yeah, Neil. I mean, I woke up instantly to something else. It forced me to take a look around me, to look around at the environment. And I realized that the country that I live in, it gets painted as this amazingly beautiful vacation destination, sun, sand, and beaches and parties and things like that. And it reminded me that that's not the reality. This place has become a gun town, and a lot of people are struggling, especially in the wake of COVID. A lot of people can barely make ends meet. A lot of people have lost their jobs recently, and they're homeless. And I mean, they pass by here and, they're like, do you have $1 to spare? And I'm honest with them. I'm like, I don't have $1 to spare. I can give you 20, because you can't get very far with $1. And if you see the reaction that these people have, like, nobody cares about them, So I started seeing a lot more of what was really going on around me, because I have this tendency to stay in my little bubble, and I just work, sleep, work out, eat, repeat, And that whole thing just woke me up. And I realized as I was walking through those ghettos and stuff as well, that everything was so dilapidated and so run down. And I think, not really getting too far into judgment of those people, but I realized that that's the reason why they are the way they are, because they've just been so marginally oppressed and kept in that position that most of the people don't know any better. Those kids were probably trying to make a few dollars just to get till tomorrow, So a lot of that stuff woke me up, and it changed me for the better, even though I had to pass through it. But I figure that was the only way the universe knew to wake me up. There's something I needed to see,
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. The amount of struggle when you're at fight or flight, you do all types of things just to survive. And then that person might do something that someone considers an inherent evil, right? But it's, another conversation I've been having recently is like, where is the original trauma? Like, the reality is that hurt people, right? And when we're in this fight or flight situation and we're committing all these atrocities on people, it's like, well, what happened to that person that committed that atrocity? What happened to that person before that, right? So it gets down to the root of, there is actually a sickness in society that is perpetuating this reality of lack, right? And which is why, like, we, a Portal Extension, we do the events we do, the information you share, it all comes down to, how do we actually do the work within ourselves so that we can create a reality that works for all of us, right? And part of that is recreating the institutions and the systems, economy, politics, all of that stuff, man. It's so corrupted that it just perpetuates a system where people need to resort to all types of crazy stuff just to get by.
Yeah, it's true. And it's, I think maybe a lot of people would think that what I'm about to say is inherently negative, but there is a really deep sickness in society that has come up. It's almost like a plague in itself. It's its own kind of psychological coronavirus that's jumping from person to person. And I would love to be the guy that says, oh, it's negative entities jumping from vessel to vessel, or it's all the TV that they're watching, or it's all the trauma. But it's choice. It's misuse of our superpower of choice. Because I know a lot of people that have been in some of the most dark situations, obviously not just through my work, but through living. And they've made different choices to a lot of different people. I think what you choose is ultimately what is the most important thing at the end of the day. But
yeah,
a lot of different things, like losing a lot of my other pets and just having people just suddenly drop dead and things like that out of the clear blue. It has taught me that, again, you can never take for granted the 24 hours that you have every day and the people in it. And when it comes to things like traumas and stuff, I think a lot of people really need to start waking up now and let go of the stories and try to understand that there's a difference between a struggle and a trauma, because there's a lot to be grateful for out there. There's a lot of things that you have that other people don't have, and you might feel traumatized, quote unquote, but maybe you're just struggling a little bit with the things that you're thinking and the way you're choosing to be, you know? And it's those people that are in a better space and in a different category to cut the bullshit, to keep it, you know, to keep it 100% straight up. Cut the bullshit and put yourself in a better position for other people, because there's a calling right now for greater community, where a lot of people feel helpless, hopeless, stranded, used and abused, whether it's by the government, their own friends and family, or whatever situation they're in. And they're not going to see if we're all so consumed with ourselves and the stories that we're telling ourselves, you know?
Yeah, and the choice is something that people need to know they have, because a lot of people think they don't have any choice, right? Like those kids thought they had no choice. And ultimately, we have the choice to create our own life. But it's almost like it's mostly belief system, right? You think you're stuck, that this is all there is. This is what your family, you know, your family was in the situation, the people that came before that, you don't have an education. There's all these limitations and barriers for us to feel that we have a choice. You know, I just got back from Colombia 2 days ago. I was in Bogota for 5 days. And bro, I've never seen this much poverty in my life, man. Oh my God. I was like, the first day I just took like a random walk, just going down streets, because I like to just explore randomly. And, you know, like crackheads, fentanyl use people on the streets, some guy losing it in the middle of the road, just like surrounded by it, right? And I never, you know, I know that exists. I've seen it on TV, but I've never seen it on that level ever before. And I'm just like, and then I'm walking a few streets over, and then I'm in like the nicest area in Bogota, you know, there's people going there, cafes, eating, and just taking a moment to reflect on the income inequality and how out of balance this world is, you know. And it's just this duality has been fully expressed. And I have a firm belief that we're supposed to experience this duality. We come here and we experience the freaking darkest of the dark. We choose to be a crackhead, you know, like, right? And but then we have the choice in life to become the master or the victim to our vice, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
That's the thing. It's like, that's the choice. Do you want to become the master of it? Do you want to become the victim? You know, hurt people. You get hurt. Do you perpetuate your pain onto others, or do you realize how you can heal from your pain, right? And then teach others how to get through that as well. And I feel that's the need. That's the healer of the moment, you know, like the people helping guide people to that next level.
Personal accountability is a real big deal. I'll tell you what, I mean, 100% responsibility is something that we all really need to keep in our back pocket at all times. I think when anything happens, I've learned the first thing I need to do is ask myself, okay, what did I do though? What did I do? What did I say and what did I do in this situation that got me here in the first place? Because we tend to overlook that. We always look for somebody to blame. And back to the traumas thing, I work with so many people that they say they're traumatized and they get it. But then when I dig a little deeper and I figure out, okay, well, what choices did you make and how did you behave and what were you thinking? What were you feeling that you chose this, and what's the story that you're telling yourself about it right now? There's so much space to be cleared. And I mean, this is a good segue into divine neutrality. One of the things I'm going to talk about is different categories of beliefs. But in addiction, especially, there's something called permission-giving beliefs, and we all have them. It's the voice inside that says, one slice of cake's not going to hurt, just one drink, we'll go out with the boys. I'll have one drink and I'll be back in a jiffy, And addicts struggle with that category of belief. We really give ourselves permission to self-sabotage. We don't even know it. We don't want to admit it if we do,
Yeah. So that's one of the components you want to speak about, the categories of beliefs, right?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about.
And how does that tie into divine neutrality?
Because essentially, the ways that we self-sabotage, it subtracts our divine spark. It takes away from our energy. So we can't reach that state of neutrality if we are taken away from that energy that makes us who we really are at the core, and we don't realize it.
Right. Yeah, and that gets into the deeper understanding of reactiveness, because that's something earlier that came to my mind when you were speaking, is do we take a moment to breathe into reality and respond from a place of inner work, or do we react to our external reality? And, addictions, and then going and having that drink or falling into a vice or doing something that, you normally wouldn't do, or somebody texting you, and this is something that happens to me often working on a hardcore, is when somebody texts you something and you don't agree with it, immediately responding from a place of reactiveness because of that emotional trigger and that trauma. Right. And it's almost like I'm so self-aware at this point, I can pinpoint like the day in my life a wound happened that created that reality for my reactiveness. Right. So what you're sharing here is like, you basically are reacting to your external reality and not really looking within on what's good for you. And when you take a step back, and instead of immediately reacting, you take a step back, you're able to come from a place of neutrality and make an informed decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things, not to take a hit on anybody, but the mindfulness industry has gone so far from the basics these days, where it's like you got to be doing all these different things, when in reality you just need to trust your breath and trust yourself. I mean, obviously we know that spirit is breath, and you have control of that. And when you are in a state of reactivity, what happens? Your physiology changes. First thing that happens to you when you're in danger is your nostrils flare, right? And that's a signal from your subconscious, your nervous system, to breathe. And so many people miss that very quick but simple cue. If you aren't trusting your breath, you're not trusting your soul. And I've had to learn that in some of my darkest times. I just need to trust myself. Just need to trust that if I am allowing myself and my physiology to do what it's designed to do and get me out of trouble, then I won't put myself in any further danger or isolate somebody else,
Yeah, man. It's like that breath is the reset in the moment for you to get into that neutrality, or just to listen to yourself, right? Because like, it just really, while we're having this conversation, I just remember all those moments. I get a text, triggered, heated response, respond immediately, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I should have taken a moment because this could be taken the wrong way, and it's like the moments that you have to almost reprogram yourself just to be like, okay, whenever I get a text, no matter what it is, good, bad, ugly, whatever in between, or a message or something happens to me, before I respond, let me take a breath and really see what my body says. And I'll speak for myself, I went so long not doing that I was at a place where I was like, I don't even know what my body wants. I don't even know what I feel, because I spent so much time reacting to the external reality that I never got time to form a relationship with how I truly felt, And so it's a process. Like maybe on the first couple times, you will take a breath and not even know exactly what you want to do out of the situation, right? but at least you can take a more of a moment to respond. Because it's an important segue, I feel, into, divine neutrality. A lot of times a few times I've had some kickback from using that term, because some people just don't understand why you would be neutral when there's so much craziness in the world, so much atrocities in the world, so many victims in the world. The governments are doing this, they're killing people here, starving people in Africa. So it's almost like this concept of neutrality is looked at as passiveness, right? Not taking action. And I would say that that's not the case. I would say divine neutrality is coming to a place of neutrality and peace within yourself, so that you make an actual decision based on that situation that is more in alignment with something that will benefit the whole system and the party, right? What would you say?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that's why we have had the gift of people who have set it all up for us to understand very quickly what is going on internally, like David Hawkins. He's given us that scale of consciousness, and we've had psychological geniuses like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross that's given us the scale for us to understand that if you're in a tough time, the faster you can move towards anger and use that to move out past, the denials of whatever have happened in the stories and get into action, use it as a motivating force, that you will get to where you're going much faster. The longer you stay there in all of the bad stuff, the more you're going to suffer. And you're right. Neutrality is not about being passive. It's about understanding that every moment you have that choice to go back to yourself very quickly, take a look, and then make a choice. And I get that there will be times where, a split second is not enough. Maybe a few minutes is not enough. You really have to do some thinking about it, but it comes with practice. The more you can get to that space, and the more you do it every single day, the more likely you are to not lose your shit, so to speak, when something really, really bad happens. And that's, like you said, that's what's going on right now. Everybody's just losing their marbles,
Yeah. And so it's something like divine neutrality kind of equals 0 point. It's like your own 0 point within yourself. And that's what's been going on this planet for a long time. But when it comes to all the wars and political game, and he said this said, and we're divided, and these people are different than us, we don't take the step back to really realize how much we have in common with each other, because we're so reactive to what we're being told. And I would say that the reactiveness taken out of divine neutrality is really the fear that is being put into society and humanity. The fear of the others, the fear of not having enough, the fear of the lack of mentality, having scarcity in lack. It's a whole entire system reboot that needs to take place, that is taking place, because it's not too far of a reach to realize that the universe is an abundant place and there's abundance everywhere. It's just a system has been created. The superficial illusionary system is just that we don't have enough because of the way the economy is structured. And part of what we're going to do at the conference, just talk about that for a second. We're doing everybody tuning in, we are doing a conference called Divine Neutrality in a few months. And part of that is talking about these tools really for us to be able to embody this. There'll be like 6 presenters, including Jehan, and tools and techniques to practice divine neutrality, what it really is, and how it can assist us in the global shift. Because we're not just having this is just like a casual conversation between us, but it's really about the bigger picture. I feel like, we talk often about how the inner work is the solution to galactic community and family. The inner work is the solution to disclosure of the UFOs. Like, none of this will happen unless you do the inner work. And one of the core components of the inner work, there's so many different things you could do, is if humanity got to a place of divine neutrality, we weren't projecting our own wounds on the other, we would probably have open contact much sooner. Especially with ETs, and the part of there was the Israeli space chief that said that there's the galactic community out there, the Galactic Federation exists, and they don't want to interact with us because humans aren't ready. that was from the Israeli space chief, the guy that was in charge of creating the Israeli space program, right? Straight up mainstream dude. What I got from that was that we are at a place of emotional wounded immaturity, like children, that we are so reactive and we are so agenda orientated from our egos, from our wounded egos, that if we were to have open contact with ETs, there would be agendas, projections, assumptions that we would make, from those communities. So that's why I decided to put on that conference, Divine Neutrality, is for us to start getting to the point where we can actually have open contact. And the contact starts with ourselves. And that's what the divine neutrality really is like, how do you truly make contact with yourself and start trusting yourself?
Yeah, it is true. And I think that there's a tendency that we all have to be prompted by a negative emotion. I can't even call them negative, but sadness, anger, fear, something. Mm-hmm. And it's the thoughts and the beliefs that we have that then begin to fill in the gaps. And we get carried away. We get swept away by the waves just by that one moment. And that takes us away from that divine neutrality so quickly and so easily. And there's so many people that I've met that say they've been doing the work in the personal development stuff for a long time, but then anything could happen. A pin could drop and they just lose it for no reason. And to me, that's still self-sabotage. And that's a lot of what I focus on. Like I really laser focus on that with my clients, and it's hard for them. I know I put them through hell through working on it, because for me, when somebody asks me what is self-sabotage, first thing I say is that it's the thoughts, beliefs, emotions, behaviors, or the actions which inhibit our progress in any area of life. It's not just about success or health or wealth or joy or abundance, but overall, it's just your spiritual growth. If you aren't using your spirit for what it was meant for, then why bother, And I just feel like we have the subconscious, and it's so large and it has so much information in it, and it's talking to us all day long. And most people will live their lives never really questioning anything that goes through their head. And then it gets to a point where people pleasing is a problem, procrastination is a problem, self-doubt is a problem, fear of failure is a problem, fear of success is a problem, addiction is a problem, you name it. And they're looking to point the finger at everybody else, but they're just not listening, Yeah.
Right. And as you're sharing here, it's pretty obvious, like, as you also shared, that there's these authors, there's these therapists, and so many people that have wrote about this and know about this stuff. And so it's not like it's far-fetched, it's not like it's hidden, it's not like it's esoteric. It's there, and there's books and information on it. And because we're caught up in this rat race and the system is created the way it is, these things aren't taught to us at childhood. Like, what if we created a world, a system, where we were able to process our subconscious as we grew up? It was like a part of our educational system, right? And I feel that's the world we're going to be in.
Yeah, it really needs to be. Like you said, if we are supposed to have open contact or even get close to that, it's going to take a lot of work on it, every individual's part, because what we do is we learn from young to undermine ourselves. And so it's no wonder that we go around looking to disagree and undermine other people. And if we're still undermining people because of their differences in opinion or the color of their skin, what are we going to do when the ETs show up? We're not going to be able to handle any of that,
Right. A cool story that also ties to divine neutrality is my Vipassana experiences, right? Because, Vipassana. So there's, for those of you who don't know, I don't know how much you know, Jehan, but Vipassana is the technique of Buddha, and there's all types of hundreds and hundreds of centers around the world. But there's one I love in particular called the Goenka Institute that's 100% free. They have hundreds of institutions everywhere. And through that, basically it's equanimity. It's coming to a place where you feel sensation in your body. You feel you're meditating. It's like a conscious meditation. And it starts with you just meditating and scanning your body from your head to your toe and back up again. And the whole intention is to feel everything without reacting to it. right? So say, like, you know, a little silly story is one time I had, you know, I've done this multiple times, and it's 10 days silence, right? Men and women are separated, so you don't have any distractions. And one day a hair fell from my freaking head onto my nose. You know, this is day 6, and I'm already like, yo, I'm in this, okay? So I'm like, oh, very interesting, because there's no, I'm being equanimous, I'm being neutral. Very interesting. And the hair is itching my nose like no other. Like no other, dude. Like I just wanted to scratch it. And I was like, no, this is day 6. I'm not going to scratch it. I'm going to completely be neutral to this. So I observed it as a sensation, but my body was still reacting to it. I was dripping sweat on the ground because of my conscious decision not to scratch it. It wasn't hot in the room, but I had made a decision not to scratch something that was profusely itching, right? And in that moment, I could literally feel, bro, I could feel my neural networks in my brain being rewired just because I chose not to react to it. So that was what you would call an adverse situation, because it was uncomfortable. But then on the flip side of it is one thing that people, I feel, neglect when it comes to divine neutrality. It's doing the same exact thing for the blissful experiences. Okay, it's like, why do we want to avoid the negative, uncomfortable experiences? And why do we only run towards the blissful experience? Can you fully be neutral and receive the information from the blissful experience? So in Vipassana, it would be like, no matter what happens, because some people will have revelations. Some person said they saw like God in one of their visions, you know? And so it's like, when you feel so happy and blissful, do you run towards it and be like, oh my God, yes? Or are you able to also observe that? And it's not to say that don't be blissful, don't be joyful, but in those moments of you choosing to keep that neutrality and be the observer of those situations creates a default setting in your life that's full of joy, rather than you always trying to chase bliss, you know, by jumping from one thing to another. Oh, I'm trying to chase the dragon. Maybe this Kundalini breathwork will take me there this time. Maybe this experience will take me there this time. You know?
Yeah.
Do you relate to that?
Yeah. At the beginning, I was exactly like that. I just wanted a way out of addiction and feeling badly about myself, and taking classes and going to webinars and all that stuff. It wasn't giving me the tools that I needed. It wasn't until I sat down and I decided I'm going to do this and had experiences like what you described. And, you know, and then you meditate for days and you have that experience of your body bursting into millions, billions of atoms, and you feel as though you're traveling through space at light speed, and you reach this bright white light, and it starts to communicate with you, and you're having these telepathic communications with this thing, and you're like, God, is that you? In a way, you know? And you realize that you can do that after meditating for days, or you can do that in 5 minutes of meditating if you know how to get there and you know how to pay attention. There's always going to be this still small voice inside of you that is trying to tell you which way you should be going. And I feel like it's one of the biggest things that's missing from society, honestly. And you were saying something earlier, and I just realized that we've just been infantilized, and we've been taught to believe that we're never going to reach that state of neutrality. We're never going to have a one-way conversation with the creator of everything. We always have to go through some other route, you know? Yeah.
It's a dualistic world. So it's interesting because, you know, something I love talking about is paradox, right? And it's almost like it's paradoxical. How do you become neutral in a dualistic world? Because the neutral is that still point. So I feel that part of humanity's evolution, fifth dimensional evolution, whatever you want to call it, is because in the fifth dimension, duality still exists. But it's almost like, how do we become the oneness in a world of duality? How do we move forward in a world of duality, but still stay one within? And I think divine neutrality is that answer, right? That is, you are your own sacred container. Your decisions come from within. and duality still is going on around you.
Yeah.
But you move forward with your own confidence.
Yeah.
And you know, I got to say, I'm not there, right? But I've had glimpses of it. I know the tools to get there. I do practices in order to keep myself there as much as possible. And it's just an ongoing lesson. It's what we're all going through right now. And ultimately, we will be the caretakers of the new world when we're all at that place. And that's partly like, we can't take our baggage to the next dimension with us, right? And as we go to divine neutrality, we got to release a lot of the extra baggage, I feel.
Well, you know, it's funny you should say that you can't take your baggage with you. You can take it from lifetime to lifetime if you want to. And I think that's an interesting thing.
But not in this body for the fifth dimension. You come back to this world probably, you know what I mean? But if you want to go into a higher expressed reality, you know, where we are free of that, you need to let go of a lot of things from, you know, this experience.
It's kind of like when you're a kid and you want dessert, but your parents say you have to finish your broccoli first.
Straight up,
we never get the dessert because we never finished the broccoli. We're like, oh, it doesn't taste good, right? So because it doesn't taste good, that deters us, and you know, we end up sneaking some ice cream later on, and then we get a bellyache, and we wonder why. You know.
It's very interesting.
This human body is the most powerful technology that exists, hands down, in my opinion. And I think if we all would understand that, yes, there's principles and practices that we can use, techniques, but there's also the limbic system and 3 pathways that we have in our body that we need to become familiar with so that we can work with that. Like, we have this reward pathway as well, that it's all about dopamine communicating between the ventral tegmental area and those dopamine receptors that you have that are inside of your nucleus accumbens that give you that feeling of motivation, and they give you that reward. And you know, you only get that when you're learning, right? And that's the reason why we reach for things to fill those voids, like sugar and alcohol and caffeine and porn and shopping, all that stuff. Once people begin to learn about these pathways and it becomes common knowledge, and you realize that, oh yeah, wow, I'm just walking around with a drug factory in my head all day long. And you know, we were talking about people want to move towards the feelings of pleasure and bliss and stuff like that, but they don't want to do the work. It's because of endogenous opioid peptides in the brain, right? And that's why we want to have those experiences, but we don't want to pass through our birthright of experiencing the opposite to it first, so that we can learn. And when you abstain from putting as many chemicals in your body, whether it's avoiding perfumes or scented candles or something like that, or sugar or alcohol, when you can reset your divine spark, and you actually do feel like the neurons of your brain are rewiring, like you said, in every day, and you become a different type of human. You become like Jenna says, the new human, you know?
It is, and it is a rewiring. The dopamine thing that you just said is huge, because I've actually been doing deep dives lately on dopamine resets for myself, and I'm about to delete my Instagram. That's something I'm about to do in next week. I'm doing this whole phase where I'm gonna delete Instagram, then I'm gonna delete my YouTube app from my phone. And what I've been doing is I've been taking mini vacations from wherever I'm living at over the last 6 months. And I went to Iceland and Ireland without my phone, without GPS and nothing, dude. And it was freaking insane. I had to use, and all of a sudden I had to work on my inner GPS. Oh my God, it was crazy. In Iceland, in like negative 10-degree weather with a rental car, right? And everything worked out perfectly, you know? I even purchased, like, this funny kind of thing. I even purchased excursions, like $100 excursions. And I had to draw like a map, like a little child map on a piece of paper to get there, knowing that I could possibly get to my location after the excursion leaves and lose my money, you know? So I was doing those kind of things just to see and I realized just by doing those experiments of how much we rely on external technology that takes us away from the internal technology. I went back from Mexico to California for Christmas. Didn't take my phone. I knew I was going to be just chilling with my family. Forced me to be present with them. You know, it's really hard for me to be present with them. And then I'm also seeing that like my number one vice is YouTube Shorts, scrolling on YouTube and Shorts. And so now I'm going to delete it, right? So what I'm getting at with all of this is that the amount of like technology that these guys have used, right? These platforms, social media, big tech have used, they're completely aware of how this esoterically works. They're completely aware of how your dopamine and reward centers work. There's been leaked documents. Some of them have been sued for it, right? That they have created these platforms in order to make us get spikes when we get certain reward factors out of it. But what happens is we get depleted over the long run, creating a pandemic of depression, anxiety, and all this. And I'm so self-aware that I realized I was becoming a part of that. You know, I was falling into it.
Yeah, and it really does kind of dictate your reality for you. It takes control, and people don't understand. When I talk about not watching television and things like that, they get really, really upset because I'm taking away their favorite toy, you know, I'm taking away their addiction. And it's the same phenomenon as when you tell a heroin addict that stuff's no good for you. And they say, you know, but it's so good. And it feels so good, you know. But there's another pathway called the stress fear pathway. I'm going to talk about all of this stuff at the conference as well.
Okay.
But it's the stress fear memory pathway. It's made up of your amygdala, which is your stress and fear center. And that's talking to the hypothalamus, which is about controlling all the hormones in your body. And the hypothalamus is talking to the sympathetic nervous system, and that's all about fight or flight. Or it's also telling your vagus nerve what to do, whether to be active or to stop working. And then you have the hippocampus, which is your memory center. And the hippocampus is interpreting everything that you experience and recording memories as either good or bad, right? So if you have pain from childhood, or you have the emotional content of the last movie that you watched, it's all in the hippocampus, and it's all cycling through that natural system, that stress fear memory pathway. So you begin to subconsciously project those experiences out into the world, right? And when you say stuff like that, oftentimes you get labeled a conspiracy theorist, right? But in reality, this is just how the hardware works. And those Silicon Valley nuts, they all know that that's how it works. And they don't really care because they wouldn't make money without exploiting those pathways, you know? So we have the ability to take control. I mean, I already have lived a life, like you said, with no Instagram, no Facebook, nothing on my phone for years. And I only got a death rectangle, is what I call these things. I only got one of those back in 2019 for business purposes. And I realized how easy it was for all those things to creep back in. And I was like, no, I can't have these apps on my phone. So I basically have a phone right now it just has Instagram on it, and that's it. Just because I use Instagram for business. But it's just stripped of everything. I literally cannot go back now to having a bunch of apps in my face. I feel the unpleasantness of it immediately. And if the average person that thinks that this stuff is normal, that doom scrolling is normal, they had that experience, they would eventually come to that site as well too, where they realize how detrimental it is, because these things are not only are they bad for us who are a little bit older and more experienced, but it's killing these kids. It's causing so much depression and anxiety and stuff in the children.
Yeah, it's interesting how much time it takes up, how much time we waste on it, right? Children, before they can even speak, they know how to navigate to YouTube videos, right? And a lot of people, I've been in situations where the family just thinks it's so cute, you know? They're like, oh my God, look what he can do, right? And it's just really just disconnecting us from this reality. And now I always gotta get into the hope here, because I realize that we're at the epitome of duality. This is like an experience of separation on like no other. And ultimately, there's going to be healing here. There's going to be a solution. And what's going to happen with that is a crumbling of the system that is currently out there, because this system cannot sustain itself. The masses are experiencing the traumas from this disconnection created from the technology, created from false practices from big tech. And once all the masses are kind of at that level, there's no way to go but up, right? And it's not per se murdering us, like in that aspect. It's creating a disconnection, and the only way to go now is up and to heal that connection. I don't know the ins and outs of how it's going to happen, right? But I feel that a lot of these systems and institutions and people behind the scenes that have been creating this in a way that's so disharmonic are going to be exposed and are being exposed right now.
Personally, I think a lot of people would laugh considering this is about to come out of my mouth. Personally, my observation is that a lot of people like in the Silicon Valley and tech companies and stuff, they're starting to have a crisis of conscience. They're starting to understand now that this has just been a huge mistake. This has been one big experiment, and now you have a couple generations of people that are really suffering as a result of it because their divine spark is being taken from them, and they're so lost in it. One of the levels of belief that I like to talk about is the soul level. That's everything that's in your heart. And these technologies, they really put you so far out of touch and push your soul right out of your body, and you have nowhere to turn, no spiritual direction. There's so many people that are spiritually bankrupt, so they just emptiness,
no feeling.
And so they use this technology to try to fill that void, but it just makes them feel worse.
Yeah, exactly.
It's tough.
Yeah. And so, which is why it's cool. Like, this is completely organic. We didn't even know we were going to talk about this, but it's kind of like in alignment with a conference that we're going to do together. Yeah. And your first appearance on Portal to Ascension.
Yeah, absolutely.
On one of our events, right?
Yeah, I'm very honored.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you too, man. Like, I feel you're a perfect fit for it.
Appreciate it.
Really going to contribute a lot. Yeah. And this is like this is the grounded conversations, especially knowing like how the brain works, the hormone levels work. It's like, it's not just coming to a place of breathe in inner peace. It's like, how do we reset our hormones? How do we reset our belief systems, right? Mm-hmm. It goes deeper. It's like emotional and physical at the same exact time, right? So things are happening within us.
Yeah, it's true, man. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be happening March 23rd.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just like a month away. So anybody, 2 months away. So whoever's tuning in, portal2ascension.org, Divine Neutrality Conference, if you want to check that out. It'll be like 5-hour event. There'll be around 4 or 5 of us bringing different types of tools and techniques to really just harness what it means to, be in divine neutrality. Yeah,
it's going to be a great time. Mm-hmm. What else we got to talk about?
Well, let's see. Okay. I'll just tell everybody what's going on with Portal to Ascension if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, this year, first of all, I don't know if you know, Jehan, but we just did a 4-day conference. It was a free event. It was called Ultimate Star Beings. It was 10 hours a day, free event, 33 speakers, January 12th to January 15th. And the day before that, we did free panels, and we had like tens of thousands of people watching. And it was probably the largest, definitely free scale event on the star beings. So what I've been focusing on this year, every year I do a theme for Portal to Ascension. Even though we speak about all types of topics every year, I like to go do a theme. Like last year, ancient history. This year, galactic origins. And so something I'm really passionate about is moving the conversation from what's going on in the mainstream, lights in the sky. Is that a drone? Is that China, right? Is that a foreign adversary? Oh my God, it's a Chinese drone. And we saw this in the 1940s. Wait a second, China couldn't have had a drone in the 1940s. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? 2, what are these beings? Who's visiting us? What's been happening? What are the messages we're receiving? And the conversation moving from what is that in the sky to what does this mean for humanity and the next evolution, which ties into this whole thing because there's certain institutions that are going to collapse very, very soon, I feel. And when it comes to the UFO, ET, galactic history thing, I would say, top of my head, religion being one major one, right? Because a lot of these beings have an understanding of the universe and consciousness and our history way beyond what we know, right? And they have a remembrance of it. Politics, right? for going from the sovereign, the king, the queen, the dictator being the sovereign to sovereignty, right? So us maintaining a sovereignty, medical institutions, like when people start realizing that the cure for almost every disease has been out there and known by these governments from E.T. Kraft for so many years, and all these people that died from cancers and stuff never had to, right? Imagine what kind of uproar that's going to be. Electricity, gas, we don't need petrol, guys, to travel, right? And poverty, right? All of these things, the reason why there's so much kickback right now when it comes to the disclosure, and then these congressional members saying, hey, tell us the truth. And even though when the Pentagon and DOD says, no, we're not going to tell you, all it does is show them public even more that they're lying to us. They know that they're exposing themselves. They know that they're basically making everybody know that they're hiding something. But the truth of what they're hiding is so much more valuable and fearful for them to release than lying about it and letting people know that they're lying. Because once they do that, as I said, cure for many illnesses already here. A new socio-political system already here. A way to transport ourselves from one place to another. And religion, all institutions that have maintained a control structure over humanity that need to be readdressed in order for us to start gaining our own control. So that's like one of my biggest passions for this year.
Sounds good to me. It sounds like moving in a good direction. I think people really need the information that you're putting out there, and
Thanks, man.
That it's a very brave undertaking, because you're pushing against so many narratives with this stuff, and I imagine at times it has to be difficult. You probably sit there and you're like, is it taking hold in anybody's brain? Is it really gonna take root and grow into something? I would have to say yeah, but it's gonna be a really slow roll, It's gonna be a really slow roll. But I'm seeing more and more people.
I just create the events, I just do what I'm passionate about, create what I really feel in my own heart, and I just put it out there without expectations, what people are gonna get from it, what they're gonna take from it. And this at the end of this year, we're doing a first ever cruise. We're Portal to Ascension cruise. It's called the Galactic Origins Cruise.
Oh yeah.
So it's a whole cruise, just going through the Honduras, Belize, and the Yucatan. We're gonna do a whole Mayan cruise, and it's just on galactic history. So we got some really good things in store. But to get back to your point, is just. Yeah, for a long time in my life, actually, I really, really was so attached to the outcome of people making a change. I would be like screaming at the top of my lungs, like, you got to know this is what they're doing. But that was more when I was in the conspiracies, Now I'm not conspiracy heavy. I'm completely aware of all the conspiracies, but I see the conspiracies as a necessary catalyst, what they have done to us as a necessary catalyst for us to wake up. And when I see all the crazy stuff in the world, dude, like everything they do backfires, right? More people wake up. It's almost like it's an equation at this point. It's like, are they stupid, or do they know that when they do these things to us, it's just going to make more people wake up to the truth?
It's like the worst. It's the worst supervillain movie that there ever was. Planet Earth.
That's too funny, bro.
I mean, it's kind of like, shoot, I don't know any of these things really, because I'm not a TV watcher. What's the one with the Despicable Me? Is that the movie?
Yeah, the cartoon.
The Minions, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it.
It's almost exactly like that, where he's
that's
the worst
funny, bro.
ever.
Well, these shows are based on reality. It probably is like the micro of the macrocosm,
Yeah. It's like I think I like to say that Marvel and like DC comics and stuff have always been used as kind of programming mechanisms, but there's always these really big seeds of truth in all of them. And it kind of shows you how evil really thinks. And it's interesting to me that people don't watch those movies and see that the evil that's inherent in this world is exactly the same. Like that's how they think. Like, and then somebody eventually comes along and kind of beats them back into the dark, cold corners of the world, and they just regroup, but then they do the same thing again and again and again and again, and they just wait because they have a very short list of tricks, essentially, is what I'm saying. You know?
And we have short lifespans.
Yeah.
So they can just repeat, rinse and repeat. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And it's like each time they get a little bit further, but then somebody comes along and pushes them back into the corner again for a lot longer. It's interesting.
Right. Well, I say every now and then that Earth is almost like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, hoping for different results.
It is.
You know, when it comes to humanity, when it comes to our traumas, it comes to our the governments, and when it comes to the cycles of time, like, let's not even forget about the 26,000 years that we go through evolution and devolution in consciousness. We're just going through these resets, remembering, forgetting. All these ancient civilizations keep trying to tell us, hey guys, watch out, this is going to happen to you. Mm-hmm. And do we listen?
Nope.
And that's the thing. That's the whole thing. I love to believe that this is the time we listen.
Yeah, I think this time around, a lot more people are listening.
Yeah.
And in a way, what we've actually seen, and we've said this before, as I think we mentioned this on the last time we spoke on here, that it's almost like because so many more people are listening, they're working quicker and quicker. But what happens when you're trying to multitask? You know, eventually something's going to trip you up. So it's mental. It is mental.
Yeah. It's crazy out there.
Yeah.
Yep. But again, I got hope, dude. You know, I feel like everything's going to be okay.
There's no choice but to have hope. Honestly, I don't think it would be very easy to do anything if we didn't put ourselves in a space of just a positive mindset and a hopeful view.
Right.
Somebody has to do
ultimately,
something.
We all want the same thing. We all want to love, be loved, have food, have shelter, have connection. That's what we all want. And I would say that almost all, if not all, pain, atrocities, traumas, hurt, you know, that we inflict on each other comes from a lack of having connection, love, security.
Yep. I was just about to say
heal those things. Heal those things, and who knows what's possible? Connection, love, security.
True.
Yeah,
man. Well, we've been talking for an hour now, so maybe we should wrap it up before we go on another tangent. All right, brother. Well, this has been a good chat. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And once again, they can find you at portaltoascension.org.
Yes.
Or on Instagram at Portal to Ascension.
Yep, or YouTube as well. Portal to Ascension on YouTube.
Great. All right. So everybody look forward to the Divine Neutrality Conference, March 23rd. And I'm sure we'll be posting about it some more. Maybe I'll even put the flyer at the end of this.
Thanks, brother.
All right. You're welcome, man. Good to see you. I will see you again soon.
Yeah, see you again too, bro.
All right.